Mark Rogers TV, Week 14 of our college football predictions. But before we get to championship week, let's run down our numbers to wrap up the regular season with just a few picks to go. 211 right, 46 wrong. That's 82.1% straight. Against the spread, 125 and 112. That's just a shade under 53%. But in those games where the point spread is under 20 points, 93 and 78, so the percentage goes up considerably at 54.5%, because as we like to say week to week, in those blowout games, you don't know who's going to be on the field in the fourth quarter or how hard anybody's going to be trying or what the coach's decisions are going to be in the play calling. So, close point spreads, 54.5%, and those confidence picks, 25 and 11 against the spread, that's just a shade under 70%. 46 and 20 over the past 2 years in our confidence picks against the spread. So listen up for one more confidence pick this college football regular season. Let's get to the game everybody in college football is talking about outside of the SEC. It's the MAC championship at Ford Field on Friday night. Northern Illinois and Kent State both 11 and 1, but because of the BCS rankings, Kent State's the story here. They sit at 17 in the BCS rankings. If they can break into the top 16, they get a BCS bowl bid if they can knock somebody else out from an automatic qualifying conference. Possibly Louisville, which won the Big East tonight, or possibly Wisconsin if they win the Big Ten championship. Kent State needs to win, take care of business on the field, and get some help elsewhere. Well, the Golden Flashes are a 7.5-point underdog. Northern Illinois, the better team on paper, with the MAC Player of the Year, quarterback Jordan Lynch, with 39 total touchdowns. And yes, we expect the magic carpet ride to end in Detroit on Friday night. Kent State, yes, it would be so fun to watch them play in the BCS and see them play against the big boys of college football, possibly in the Orange Bowl. Northern Illinois, despite the same record at 11 and 1, without the game against Rutgers factoring into it, probably couldn't move up close enough to the top 16, into the top 16 to get the BCS nod. So it's all up to Kent State riding the hopes of the MAC. But we say Northern Illinois wins the game outright. Take Kent in a close game plus the 7.5 points. All right, on to Saturday's play and the Big 12 championship up for grabs as well. But there is no championship game with only 10 teams in the Big 12, so they finish out the regular season with Kansas State and Oklahoma tied at 7 and 1. K-State would get the nod to the BCS because they beat the Sooners head-to-head. K-State coming off that horrible loss to Baylor 2 weeks ago, which dashed their BCS National Championship hopes, bounced back against Texas in Austin this week. K-State, more disciplined, smarter football team with Colin Klein at quarterback. K-State wins, but that Texas talent keeps it close with McCoy playing for Ash at quarterback. We like Texas plus the 11.5 points. K-State wins the game, though, so that puts some pressure on the Sooners as well. The Sooners taking on TCU on the road in Fort Worth. We like Oklahoma minus 6.5 to cover against TCU. Elsewhere in the Big 12, non-consequential game here, Oklahoma State and Baylor, but with Oklahoma State in the top 25, we pick all the top 25 games. Oklahoma State against Baylor. The Baylor Bears, of course, were the big upset 2 weeks ago against K-State. They're riding a bit of momentum, scoring tons of points, giving up tons of points. We like Oklahoma State with a little bit better Cowboys defense, minus 3.5 over Baylor. Now on to the championship games around college football, and we started out with a confidence pick, and it was tough to find one here this week with a limited number of games, but we think we've got one in the ACC with Georgia Tech taking on Florida State. Florida State, as we know, has some of the best talent in college football. Georgia Tech does not. They lost earlier to Middle Tennessee, got blasted by Georgia last week. Our only concern here is motivation. It is the conference championship game. But for this Florida State team, it's a letdown. They lost to arch rival Florida with an outside shot of getting to the national championship game. They blew their season weeks ago against NC State and have slept walk at times to get to this point. Florida State 10 and 2, Georgia Tech 6 and 6. The ACC's a mess, and Florida State definitely the best team. Should be playing Clemson in a championship scenario. But we like Florida State to not only win, but cover 14 points. They're so much better than Georgia Tech. We expect the Noles to wake up at some point, turn on the throttle, and hammer home a win, minus the 14 against Georgia Tech in a confidence play. The rest of the championship games in an interesting and somewhat pathetic scenario in the Pac-12 because we got two teams playing for a second consecutive week. Last week at the Rose Bowl, this time at Palo Alto, as the Cardinal defeated UCLA by 18 to finish out the regular season. There's some speculation that Jim Mora held back, knowing that he possibly didn't want to face Oregon in the championship game and would be playing Stanford 2 consecutive weeks with the loss. So Stanford against UCLA, the Bruins, a magical season thus far at 8-3. Stanford, though, a better football team. Look at the results. They have played extremely well, taking Notre Dame to the wire, to overtime on the road, and of course the big win against Oregon and USC. We like Stanford to win this game, but the point spread has gone from 1.5 at the Rose Bowl up to 9.5. So take UCLA plus the 9.5 points to keep it close enough against Stanford. Cardinal move on to the Rose Bowl with the win. We also have the Boise-Nevada game as we step away from championship play, but Boise looking to get it done in the Mountain West and win another championship there. We like them -8 against Nevada at 7-4. So against Boise, -8 against Nevada. In the Big Ten championship game, okay, we've got Wisconsin and Nebraska, and we know the situation here. Penn State ineligible, Ohio State ineligible. The Nittany Lions surprised everyone with a 6-2 Big Ten record. They would actually be a 3rd seed in the Big Ten. You take the Big Ten teams 1 through 12, you're missing the 1 and 3 seeds. Wisconsin, in fact, would be a 6th seed in the Big Ten, but hey, they're in the championship game at 4-4 in the Big Ten, taking on a Nebraska team that they lost to in Lincoln earlier, 30-27, a game that they blew a big lead, and Nebraska continued to win the games coming back against Penn State and Wisconsin and a number of teams, Northwestern included, in the Big Ten to finish 7-1. I would really love to pick Wisconsin in this game. This one is tough because I love that Wisconsin experience. Monte Ball at running back. I think they've got a chip on their shoulders, and this Wisconsin team the last few years in the Big Ten knows how to win football games when it matters. Nebraska's got such a decided advantage at quarterback with Taylor Martinez, speed at wideout with Kenny Bell and other playmakers, and on defense as well. But we are going to go out on a limb and somehow look for Kurt Phillips, the 3rd-string quarterback for Wisconsin, to somehow get enough plays in the passing game to Jared Abbrederis, Jacob Pedersen, and that Wisconsin team's going to pull off an upset in Indianapolis and get to the Rose Bowl. Wisconsin plus 3.5 against Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. And finally, we get to the Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game. If you want in-depth analysis, please check out our video post from earlier in the week where we preview the SEC championship game. Georgia, Alabama, they are certainly 2 of the top 3 or 4 teams in the country, so deservedly so, the SEC comes down to this. And we like the Alabama Crimson Tide to win it. It's going to be a very good game, but not down to the wire. We've got Bama 30, Georgia 20. Therefore, Bama covers the spread of 7.5. Those are our final college football predictions for the regular season. Of course, we will pick all the bowl games in just a few weeks. Now we would love to hear from you. Your picks, your comments on college football, a big championship week this weekend on Mark Rogers TV.